This is GBAM's SKG broadcast for the to see how it's done, like if it's possible to do. Appreciate everyone's patience with the technical difficulties or having to relaunch. Anyone in the chat, do give us a message to let us know how the audio is there. We're gonna get started here. Basically, I'm just going to go around the table, starting from top left, and give quick introductions. Dark is in the top left corner, a Linux expert and systems expert with respect to that. He also is consumer advocate. All right, so we're definitely glad to have him on here. John, I'll let you speak to some of the finer points of your expertise. You're a coder, and you have distributed systems knowledge, right? Web 3. All accurate to say?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Martin, our business analyst, he's in the center box here. So he's a longtime industry veteran, did work as an editor, a games journalist and editor. He's been with studios, including Warhorse, famous for Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, among other games. All right, and the bottom right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce. It's going to be it's also goes by Occular, I believe. Jim, is that right? Is that right? I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
What
Bill.
is Bill? I'm sorry, Bill. Bill. Okay, that's Bill, and he's
Or Jim, sure.
okay. I don't know. I don't know where I got Jim from. But
I'll be Jim. I'll be Bill. I'll be anybody.
He's kind of like Captain Kirk, really. So that could be it.
could
Pretty much, yeah.
could be. All right. So you're a longtime developer, independent developer, a business owner. Any points you want to bring out on that before we I'll introduce myself and we can begin.
No,
Anything I
I'm
missed?
old.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I am J-Dog, founder of GBAMFs. We're a little behind schedule here. So the short intro is we are a gamer consumer advocacy group, and we're interested in it representing player interest, gamer interest, and repping gamer culture, and making sure that gamers have the best deal in the marketplace. And all of that really. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We did actually have an initial run at this, so we're what does it mean to our to gamers? What does it mean in gaming culture? The SKG success. And that's something. It means, I think, something a little bit different to every gamer, but we all have unique perspectives on it, and we definitely we're live and recording now. There's a little bit of noise in the background. Could let me see here. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute. But if anyone wants to jump in first with what your take on the success of the petition, the significance of it, and we'll just go around the table.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a win for consumers. It's a win for gamers. Studios might not so much enjoy it, depending on where you land on that. I think for an industry that talks about preserving art, it kind of forces them to actually put their money where their mouth is, and be better than 13% of your art being preserved.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to agree with you there. Definitely. It's a culturally significant moment for gamers. I'll just volunteer. I see it as kind of it's a little bit of a watershed. Usually, gamers we focus a lot of our effort in game. All right. So I mean, for gamers to stand up en masse And we're talking about 1.5 million signatures that were reached in the EU for this petition to succeed. That is momentous. That's not something that's ever been really seen before, and it represents a big change of like gamers. I'm going to say rising up. All right, gamers rising up, actually, in fact, in real life, in a peaceful, constructive fashion, to make our voices heard and say, we love video games. They mean something to us. They're not mere products, right? And withdrawing them, we don't want to see our games go away. In summary, so I'll go around the table. Dark, what do you think on it?
For me, I like I said, I just think it is a win for gaming as a whole, honestly, because there's just so much that the industry needs to, I want to say, realign a bit than it currently is in a trajectory. There are places and evidence of studios and developers and publishers and that stuff doing it right, but like to me, you get things like the video game, what Europe group there that talks about some of the problems with it, and if you have any technical background, some of it is bogus, and I'll put it that way. From a business perspective, that might be a different story, but they talk about a lot of technical limitations, and I just don't think they hold a lot of water as a tech enthusiast and as an open source advocate and user. I have a huge problem with some of their technical claims.
Absolutely,
but
absolutely.
I do think it's a huge win for just kind of the culture of gaming in general that needed to happen. That kind of we have people in certain places that aren't of the I hate saying of the culture, but like of the impact games have, and it's all strictly business. It's all in that regard, and
right.
It shows.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So what are these 1.5 million people actually asking for? Are they asking for the company to keep the games live?
It's a combination of things.
Them?
It's a combination of things, John. I did give you the link. In summary, what it says is games preservation. Games preservation is imperative. Okay, and at the end of the day, you can't discontinue a game without due regard for the consumer. Okay. So I mean, I want to make sure you have the document in front of you, because this is we're going to go through it point by point. Okay.
Yeah, I was just playing devil's advocate for the viewers.
Okay. Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, I looked at the document, but
Okay.
just as a technical guy, as a Unix guy,
Right.
as a guy that's built servers, I'm saying, okay, what are you asking for? What are we asking for? What is the request? Or is the company's gonna keep doing this? Is it gonna be released on? I know it can't go onto Steam, but
Okay.
So
Sure.
so
You want to
what-
take that one, Bill?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. So, I here's the thing. You and I, John, are old gamers, right? Back in the 80s, and back then we didn't have there weren't master servers, there weren't online services that forced us to use those services in order to run our games. We would launch LAN parties. We would play Doom on our corporate network, and
Right.
it that's the fun we had, and we can do that today. pop a disc in and play Doom on a LAN or whatever, and we don't have to communicate with the mothership. We don't have to talk to ID software. They don't have to give us a license or anything like that. The problem is that these new online only games and some of these other games where they are inherently tied to some service that the company made, that you pay for the game, and there's a whole issue of paying for a game versus paying for a license. But you pay for the game, and the company decides, well, we're not going to support this game anymore. We are going to shut the servers down in whatever time frame, and you paid for the game. It's done. That's it. And all this initiative is asking for in the European Union is to say, please have the discussion to put in place some kind of backup plan, right? Whatever it is, doesn't matter, something, so that we just don't lose these games. It's game preservation. It's continuing the game privately, whatever. And that could mean private servers. It could mean patches to the client. It could mean a lot of things, right? What it doesn't mean is exactly what they're doing today, which is they flip a switch and that disk you bought, that game you downloaded, is basically a brick.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. That's the whole. That's in the name. It's in the name. It's stop killing games, right? And they take a piece of functional software, something that's a multi-user environment, usually multiple servers. I mean, it really depends on the scale. Everybody knows World of Warcraft. Everyone is familiar with the very large-scale games. But there's a number of intermediate and smaller-scale multiplayer games that are still very dependent on the online integration and the server ecosystem, right? The proprietary ecosystem that it's based in. And what Stop Killing Games aims to do, fundamentally, as Bill says, it's to translate that, right? So you can't just kind of just end a game or without any path forward for the users. And that's all we're asking for. We're asking to be able to continue to play the games we bought, right? Continue to be able to enjoy the game experience that we they started initially with, and having a company just kind of end that, kind of like it was some kind of limited time event, that doesn't strike us, at least, as an organization. We're saying that's something else. That's not a product centric focus. It's not actually delivering any kind of defined or consistent value to the customer ultimately. If the game is not a fixed product, it doesn't deliver a fixed, some kind of set result or something that's reproducible. We expect a product to work kind of like a product, even if there's some labor behind it, maybe a little bit of a contingency of setup, right? Some assembly required. So who wants to speak to that as far as server side experience and setup? You have some thoughts on it, John?
Well, yeah. I guess my main thought is again, like as the let's say the system engineer that's going to build this out. I would say that you have to. You can't. It's going to be very hard to retrofit this into existing games. But if you built new games, and you had one very special caveat, is that your identity in the game is called self-sovereign or self-service, mm-hmm. where you have a like a wallet, which is used. It's the same as your crypto wallet for blockchain, right? But you have your own identity that you control, and that's baked into the game from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then when you have your rewards or whatever, those are written to, I'm talking about data being written to a blockchain. Then when it's time, let's say 5 years passes, and when they first put the game out, they said, okay, we're going to do this for 5 years, and then after that, it's going to go into the public domain. So they maintain the game for 5 years. They dole out the rewards if you got to level 7 or got a fancy sword or whatever. And then after that time, the community takes it over. The community is now running the servers, and you're giving out these rewards, or because that seems like that's the difference between this World of Warcraft kind of game and like Minecraft, right? In Minecraft, you don't have this single identity that you're going to lose. You just have your Minecraft city that you built or whatever, right? So that's how I see. If you build it in ahead of time, and if you use this new, it's called self-sovereign identity, if you use this technology, then that can make possible what you guys want. Now, would the game development companies go for this? Maybe. That's a whole different question. But just from a purely technical point of view, that's how your level 42 cleric could live on after the game is officially, let's say, retired, but still playable. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, John, that's one implementation. That's one way to do it. And if you wanted to continue on, but I think the initiative, and you mentioned it yourself, is this is not retroactively fitting, old games or whatever. It's the initiative is have the discussion by the European Union governments to sort of put in place some sort of legislation or whatever it is, so that going forward, a game company needs to have some kind of out for this, right? For whether it's the system you mentioned, whether it's releasing the source code, making a server, doing a patch, whatever it is, or coming out and saying, I'm not sure if this is an option or not. I've watched lots of videos from Ross, who's driving the initiative, but I think the other option is simply, we're going to shut this game down and it's going to die, period, right? That, I think, is still a viable option, but not one that you come up at the last minute for, right? If they come out at the beginning and launch the game like that and say, by the way, we're going to kill this game in 10 years, so you'll be on your own at that point. At least it's setting expectations for everybody, right?
Right.
Yeah. Don't charge full price for something that's going to be canceled in 3 months.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Transparency, right? We're not asking for the moon. We're not asking for as some assert, famously, infamously, because it's the internet and a little bit of drama is okay on the internet, right? It did help the petition get some attention in the end, right? So anyway, Pirate Software famously, infamously claims, it's going to run forever. We're obligating them. They're compelled to host this indefinitely. Well, it's not so. That's not the only implementation. That's not the demand. None of that's the case, right? None of that applies. What applies is we want a path forward. We want some durable ability to access the value of the product, right? So there's many ways to that. One is kind of a decentralized approach. I hear that, John. That's a very forward-looking perspective. I definitely see design. I'm just, from my point of view, I'm long-time IT guy, and seen a lot of movement in the industry. I could definitely see that decentralized distributed systems definitely a future design platform model. So that definitely offers a lot of incentive to design around that, develop around that. As far as the proposal as it is, there's going to be there is a fair amount of retrofitting that may be in scope. That's not unrealistic, right? There's some games now that are not out of service that may need to be adapted, and from a traditional client server point of view, right? Something supports more like a WoW, or more like RuneScape before that was spun off, which is actually a pretty good example of a successful spin-off. Um, what's the difficulty threshold? We all have some background in tech here. What's the difficulty threshold, and what's feasible? And I know there's a lot of different examples. So if you want to pick one, maybe pick a game that you think is a better candidate or a not so good candidate, and tackle that can work. So anyone jump in here.
It depends on the game, honestly. I mean, honestly, I think Martin's perspective on this would probably be interesting to hear because, having developed with like Warhorse and some other stuff, that would, some of the challenges that would come along with that. What are your kind of thoughts on that, Martin?
Yeah,
All
Martin.
right. Well, well, I worked only really on one online game that was more like a service game. When it comes to my work at Warhorse, that is like purely single player game. It's like you buy it, you have it, you can run it, right? There's just like the Steam DRM or whatever, and that will be probably removed over time as well. But the one online game I worked on was DayZ, DayZ, however you pronounce it, wherever you're from, guys. And that's pretty much an online service kind of game, just without all the heavy monetization bullshit, because they just sell new maps, And
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if I should call this like a bright example or just being lucky by keeping to what worked like 20-30 years ago, because the Bohemia Interactive, they're using technology that just worked before, right? They worked on Armed Assault, and Operation Flashpoint initially, like early 2000s, I think 2001 or 2002. And they kept running on that engine like forever, including the server structure. And what they figured out is like they always like let the community run community servers, both for Arma and for DayZ. Like DayZ has the added complexity that and if I make any technical mistake, I'm sorry, because I'm not like a network engineer or like coder really. It also has to have some sort of SQL database where the information is kept about all the players and all that kind of stuff. And the community has access to all of that. Like they can make their own server that is separate from the public server global economy of the game. And it's just them sticking to what they did with Arma. They always let the users run their community servers, and they figure out like a good business model with DayZ, as far as I know. But it's really been quite a long since I haven't worked there, like 10 years now. But what they're doing is they're licensing the capability to host these community servers to like companies that provide game servers, where community can like rent basically, right, and upload the files, like define all the stuff they need to define, and it will work. And the companies that provide the servers for the community, they pay like some part of the income they get from that back to Bohemia Interactive. They're running DayZ servers or Arma servers. So they like figure out a way how to like be motivated to not just shut down the game, even if it's something like DayZ, because they eventually have to do DayZ 2. But I think even if they don't shut down DayZ 1, whenever DayZ 2 will be a thing, they will still be okay with the community running it, because they will get some revenue, their profit cut from the server providers, basically, just because they license them the ability to run for the community. So that's like a model that works, but it's not like something they innovated about. They just kind of stuck to their guns for a long time until it's cool again, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what we're talking about with legacy. Is and this is what it is, right? The process of preserving a game inevitably is going to require one or another landing point, right? Like as a model, because even if it launches a certain way system, there's every game has a patch, and every game will probably at some point deal with an OS update, and so there's a little bit of services involved, even on a very fixed and a single player game. So choosing where choosing the devolution, that's super important, and that's really that's the broader point, right? Because we can design, design is going to be ideal if we can design for that eventuality. That's the goal going forward, is to inspire that. But finding a good model, hybrid model, or a devolved model, that's the real challenge here. So that's one of them. Does anyone else wanna go on, as far as a game that you think that could work on, or that's so really it's worth doing?
There's been a few different games depending on which way you want to look at them. There was Free Space 2 that Volition put out as I believe, non-commercial license, but all the work, excuse me, all the work is on the engine that the community can do. As long as you buy the game from GOG, it bypasses all the assets and licenses on the assets and music and all the other stuff. It's the same way. It's the same kind of license and stuff that Command and Conquer, the open source versions, do. It's how you bypass a lot of the licensing and limitations on the usage of that stuff, is make the engine the thing that goes out. And kind of to Martin's point, City of Heroes basically did what Martin's talking about with Bohemia is doing with giving a license to the community, essentially, to here you go, do what you will. Here's the tools you need to develop on the game. Is definitely one way to show that. Another game that was open source was Duelist. It became Open Duelist, and that was a multiplayer labeled game. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can, if we're talking strictly game preservation, go work with some of these preservation society, like there's, what is it, Game, I think is one of them. Hitmaker, I believe, is another one. Like, go work with some of these preservation societies for gaming. Like, they don't have to bear the brunt of trying to pick up the industry's slack on its preservation work.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes me think of something kind of interesting.
Okay.
And Martin touched on this too. That there's really two things. There's the database, and then there's the engine that reads the database. And so, one thing that the gaming company could do with, and even in a retro sort of way, even if they decide they want to retire a game and hadn't thought about this ahead of time, they could etch into, I call it the public blockchain or Web3, but really what it is it's data being written into crypto transactions. So you can, and this is something that I personally focus on. You can take like your sprites from the game or whatever, all of the elements, all of the players, and you can just put all of that into the blockchain, and then it's just sitting there, and it's like a public database. Nobody has to pay for it anymore. Once that first transaction has happened, it's just there, and then you can have when you come up with your new game engine, you can revive all of that data and just roll it into your new game if you wanted to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is that yeah, it's a very forward-looking design. I think what we're, it's
Yeah, that's very futuristic. Like what I was talking about was more like, okay, so Bohemia Interactive provides the server files to run the server side, but also like the blueprint for the SQL, like the database seed, so they can start their own the community themselves. Because say like it's an online game in a weird way, the economy though is kind of interconnected between public servers. So if you want to role play, you can do that, but you have to adjust stuff like spawns and rules that are like coming from the database. And that also makes sure that stuff stays in the game when you log off and the server restarts from maintenance or whatever, that your base stays there. It's like it's just a database seed, so the game server can connect to it and run the whole thing for the community. I don't think it's a technical difficulty, and I don't think it necessarily needs to go into blockchain, even though I can see in some Star Trek future that would be a good way to do things, but not right now. Now it's just more about saying like, look, we
Wait,
know what technology is necessary to run these kind of services, and like the fan base is often nerds. They know how to run these things, so I don't think
That's
there's
true.
a technical problem really.
Yeah.
No, it's not a technical problem. I mean, blockchain is interesting as a solution, but I mean, the solution can be done with anything, any technology. It just comes down to greed, right? The companies are just driven purely by more money, right? And they will suck as much money out of the company or out of that product as they will. And then, I hate to use the example of the crew, but we look at the crew, which is one of the key ones that was
Right.
the driver behind SKG.
Yes.
They shut the crew down, but everybody's like going, well, okay, this sucks. But then they're like, oh, what? Ta-da! We've got the crew too, and new microtransactions and new licenses and all this crap. So yeah, like the companies, going back to sort of what we were talking about at the very start of this, was around the initiative being, government having a discussion about this. The companies, will the companies implement this? Probably not. Even if they're told to, they probably are
right, yeah,
lawyers right now to try to figure out, some kind of loophole to get around this, right?
Right, and I can tell you what the loophole is they would at the very I mean, what you're saying I think is true, that the companies don't want to participate, and I think the most you could get would be a refund of some sort. Like a partial refund for, okay, you used 60% of the game, here's $20. Something like
I guess.
that. I think that's the most you can force out of them if they don't want to play, right?
Well, it's a reg, and that's not in the scope of the reg. Now that has been proposed. I mean, just on a bit of a sideline, right? That has been addressed as kind of a forfeit option, right? Like a kind of a cutaway option, so that if you want to end the game and there's no feasible way technically, in theory, to do that, or it's totally impractical to port it. Maybe it's all large scale servers, and they, for whatever reason, right, they insist that everything is proprietary. Everything is integrated in such a way it can't be moved. Okay, that's we're gonna run into some of that. That will be an eventuality. SKG, the regulators will have to face tackling the SKG mandate, and in that scenario, that may be something that gamers have to contemplate, right? Like if it's a large game and it's heavily online integrated, that argument could be made. But I think what SKG is focused on is in games where it's it's under the WoW tier, right? It's more I think it's more like Roblox, right? Things like this, things that can be moved, can be decentralized to some extent, and so there's a lot of technical wiggle room for that. As far as there's 2 points of data, right? And we could address these probably one after the other, which is, the server, right, the server side data stuff that's typically metadata and it's related to the back end of the game, and there's user side data. And I don't want to get into the tall weeds, although this is a tech stream, so we could definitely do that. The model we have decidedly is a centralized, almost all of it is centralized model, right? And that's something that I do both foresee, and I think the consumers are demanding, right? A move, a little bit of flexibility from, if not a move away from, right? On the whole, and we there's a lot of room, there's a lot of distance to go there, to make that work. So I think the question is, I mean, assuming that there's no translation possible of a game, we might look at a refund scenario. But we're trying to avoid any kind of market finessing of delivery, right? Of the game, because that's kind of what we're getting now. They're like, they say, oh well, you got your value out of the game, and basically that's their argument, is it's the value has been expended, right? That your coupon is expired, and so we don't want to kind of put the ball back in that court where we're entertaining a non-delivery of the game on a financial basis. You know what I'm saying? We want to avoid that eventuality, even if it may come up. What I'll go around the table. I think the other way here, Bill. We haven't heard from you in a bit. What do you think? What say you about the the feasibility of bringing them over, right, from the present model, and where that's not as easy to do, what do you think is the best solution? Is it kind of maybe a hybrid, to have a third party host? What do you think the way forward is, the most viable for the most games?
Well, like Dark said, it's going to be a case by case basis for all the different games, because every game is different, right? Some games can be patched, some games, there'll be we could use our own server. I'll give you one example. So last year we had the day before, right? And the day before was kind of a disaster. Big hype, gets released, horribly performing game, and gets released on the Friday, and the Monday the company shuts down. So now in this case, the game was forcibly refunded by Steam. This was something Steam has never done before. They gave the money back to everybody because they realized, companies folded and basically threw up their hands and said, "We're done." And then they forcibly gave everybody a refund and forcibly removed the games from their libraries, unless you had a copy of it.
Right.
So that's a game. So that was a extraction shooter, online multiplayer. Needed a server. The server was never released. You can play it offline with a lot of mods. And I'm talking from experience because we've actually got this running. So you can go into the world, and the world is there. Like, you can run around, you can do things with it in it. What's missing is that server component that you talked about, J-Dog. There's no loot, there's no zombies, there's no high score tables, there's none of that stuff, right? That's in that database that Martin's talking about. Mm-hmm. That could a community create that? Absolutely, right?
Right.
Could we reverse engineer the protocol to figure out how to talk to it? probably, if the official servers were up or whatever. So that's a game that could live on, with a little bit of community effort, and you see that all the time with community community groups getting together and just figuring out these protocols, figuring out reverse engineering, all the data, and coming up with solutions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be the company coming forth and saying, "Oh, well, we're going to reveal our secrets, and we're going to have to release proprietary software and this and that, the other thing." It can be as simple as, "Okay, we patched out the check for the server. You can run single player now," right? Maybe, right? Now, I'm not saying you're going to do that with WoW, or you're not going to be able to do that with EVE Online, or something, or whatever the product is. But again, it comes back to, what is the Stop Killing Games initiative? And it's to put a bug in the ear of the gaming companies to say, you guys need to think about this and proactively figure it out, rather than reactively, scream and shout about, all the trouble you have when you want to take this offline, right?
Yeah, facts. It is a forward-looking proposal. The toughest, yes, as with any, and thank you for that, Bill. It's a great round insight on kind of the present day, right? And it's a good example too. There's the rough. It's true with every piece of software. I mean, every piece of legacy, certainly like industrial software, any kind of commercial serviceable software suite. Doing legacy service and any kind of porting, all that, it's always the toughest. I mean, I just speaking a little bit outside of my immediate focus in IT, but just from what I see and from what I understand of it, and I've done projects where that's been a factor, not the first-hand part of, I haven't hand coded it and hand ported it, but it's always a haul. There's a lot involved. It's easier to code than to retrofit code. These things are all in evidence in this. So the proposal does look to make it more of a this is a design mandate, rather than every single live service component or any kind of online component game out there now, that every single one's going to make it. Some of them probably won't make. They're going to find a way around it, or there's going to be kind of a hang up, or some of them, and this happens with legacy software, some of them it's going to just take an awful long time to figure out, to finesse the the libraries and the server client dynamics. It's just not going to go easy, right? But it still can come to the community. It's just going to take a really long time. Like you said, the server side data going to need a lot of work. So I think we are speaking about the future of it more so than can every game that's out there right now neatly, easily, or entirely come across. What I'd like to do is, if anyone wants to speak to any of the points we've raised so far, jump in here. But I'd like to kind of go through the FAQ a little bit, maybe pick out a few things. And just parse the process that happened with this before we get into the the future and design side of how making SKG happen. What do you say to that? Anyone?
That's good.
All right. All right. Well, so let's see here. Now, we did put forward, I just want to recap a little bit for our side. Anyone that's not familiar with it so far, SKG is I just kind of do this for anyone who jumped in. SKG is a successful petition, EU petition for the people of Europe that gamers rose up, and basically we expressed our cousins in Europe express their strong desire to preserve games, make games that are available today, playable in the future. Let the art live, live on, not just be kind of subject to a corporate whim, right? Just turn it off. And especially it's a product we buy, right? I think it's super important. And they do have a little better, it's worth acknowledging, a little better consumer protection laws in the EU in a number of cases. There's a number of favorable regulations, I think, that customers can appreciate. That's probably going to be, we're looking at one of them with SKG since it succeeded. Almost 1.5 million, just under 1.5 million signatures. So that's basically a sure victory there, where 1 million are required. And what SKG aims to do is preserve the software, mandate that on the company that you don't kind of destroy the game. That's a way of putting it. That the game is not destroyed once it goes out of active production and service. And that's a little different paradigm. At one point in time, just to give a little bit of retrospective, I mean, software was still fairly novel coming out of the 80s, the 90s. It became much more business mainstream throughout the mid and late 90s and on from there. But software competed with other mediums, right? Dedicated consoles and typewriters and everything back in the not too long ago day. So the notion of maintaining a game, right, as an art, as a distinct piece of art, hasn't always occurred to everyone. As a matter of fact, we're kind of grappling with it on the consumer side because we've all been so busy enjoying games this number of years that it's not necessarily occurred to all of us distinctly that these things are pieces of art worthy of being preserved, and they are. I mean, they are. There's maybe varying degrees and tastes, but they absolutely are. They're also technical feats, which, frankly, there's museums for lots of great technical stuff that is, I've been to the Henry Ford Museum. Just saying, there's things worth exhibition in their own respects. So that's kind of the situation with that. That's a success, and now we have to figure out how that's going to happen, how we're going to do it. So the SKG site, Stop Killing Games, that's the full name. And it is right there in the name. That's it. You pay for a game, don't kill our games. Don't take them away. And there's some frequently asked questions that are highlighted here. I'm just going to do a little read through. If any of you wants to comment on the ones I'm pulling up, do let me know. So this is good background. How are publishers destroying video games? Answer to that is an increasing number of video games are designed to rely on a server the publisher controls in order for the game to function. This acts as a lifeline to the game. That's a well-phrased point. When the publisher decides to turn this off, it is essentially cutting off life support to the game, making it completely inoperable for customers. Companies that do this will often intentionally prevent people from repairing the game, also by withholding vital components. When this happens, the game is destroyed, and because no one can ever operate it again. And that's kind of what it is. It's kind of taking the keys or the heart away from the game. You think it's fairly characterized? We all have a toe or more in software in development. For me, it's batch and macros. It's not impressive. But anyway, anyone want to comment on this? Is that a fair point they're making, do you think, there?
Yeah, of course. It's I mean, we have so I'm in Canada, and I'm not able to sign the petition, but I support it, of course. Same with people in the U.S. and things like that. So we actually tried, or Ross tried to get the initiative working in Canada. Canada basically threw up its hands and said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to handle it federally. We'll let the provinces deal with it. And then the provinces said, yeah, it's too complicated. We'll let the federals deal with it. And so it's been that kind of thing. So they've basically washed their hands of it. But
right.
I believe in the U.S. You guys have this. In Canada, we have a right to repair. Right, it's the Right to Repair Act or something like that,
I
which
see.
is which is essentially advocating for consumer choice to repair products that you own. Right. Um, because the company stops making it or the company goes out of business or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And you've got a dishwasher you need to fix. Well, you need to be able to get parts for it or whatever, right? You need to be able to do,
Definitely.
right? And this is not really that different, right? It's making, the repair manuals available, making, replacement parts available through third-party manufacturers or whatever. Um, this is exactly the same thing for games. It's like, you know what? You don't need to give up your source code. You don't need to give up your server code. Um, Give us the client, design docs, specs on server data.
Hmm.
We'll figure it out. We're smart guys, you know.
That's right. That's right. A lot of I think it's a very good point, Bill. Um, the gaming community, and I'm gonna pull up on our website. We have a list of it's a short list. There's probably 1,000 legacy games with some kind of community support that are sustained to this day. And when I say legacy, that refers to software that's been there, has been out there for a while. Legacy games, some of them go 20 plus years. They still have communities maintaining them. I mean, Doom is the famous one, right? Doom is the big one. You have GZ Doom. You have let me see here. There's L Doom, I think, was there for there's probably just 4 or 5 different engines that have come out just to support the Doom libraries, the Doom WADs, which are the resource files for the game, to run it that much more nicely. And I have one of them listed here. Let me just mute that here.
Well, and just to comment that
Sure.
that's kind of like the model for companies, right? Is ID Software in its heyday um, was kind of like the de facto model, right? John Carmack, the mutant that he is, would come out with this software. Everybody would be like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And then the next version, they would release the next version, come up with new techniques, right? Here's ray trace lighting. Here's streamable levels. Here's all this technology that hadn't existed. And oh, by the way, we just open sourced our last version of the game, and here it is. And here's all the specs for the new version files if you want to build your own level editor, right? That's the way to do it. That's the company to model from, right? I don't They don't do it as much now, but they that's what they did up until into the 2000s, right? Every time they came out with a new version of the game, they open source their old version,
Hmm.
and that's why we have so many variations of Doom. That's why Doom runs on everything from a refrigerator to a pregnancy test. Um, because the code is open, the formats are widely known. Doom will never die, right?
As it shouldn't. As it's just ironic, right? The biggest pew pew shoot 'em up game of all time, right? Is just plowing through enemies if you're good at it, right? And this is a game that is eternal, right? Doom Eternal. But I mean, yeah, it's a game that absolutely will run on anything, and be a big respect and compliments to ID's position on this, and the mutant himself, as you say, John Carmack, John Romero. There's another Carmack. I think Adrian. There's the legends there. The guys who started that knew what they were doing. Fair to say, really fair to say. And the coding there was not is more on the technical side of a feat, right? We're talking about of art either way, but that's seriously good coding. Not just to glaze. It is what it is. The reason it runs on everything is not just because they iterated, right? It's not just new engines. It's because the fundamental work, very clean, very sound, ran on anything back then. back then. You could take Doom across the board, except I think Cyrix processors didn't do so well. That might have been Quake. I think it was Quake.
That was Quake. That was
Yeah.
definitely Quake that killed Cyrix.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just a whole other long story. But Doom's code is it's just got to be clean as a whistle because it runs. I mean, it runs on probably to this day on Texas Instruments or any other calculator, and yeah, the portability that really speaks to the importance, the core importance of core quality coding and clean work, right? And I myself am not a dev, but having appreciated devs brews for many years now, right, and being able to stack them up, and I've looked at code, I've dealt with hacks, I've had to deal with my share of code adjacent work, and having something as well documented that's clean, the libraries are can be parted out or exchanged. All very important. All very important. Easy to say too, from a non-developer standpoint. But I appreciate something about what's involved there, and we don't. Part of the issue, right? That it is the increase in difficulty in porting. Is a drift in code quality and frankly in scope of keeping a game in or any piece of software within siloed. Everything is migrating into kind of a there's a creep of there's model creep, and I think there's also frame creep in terms of platforms, right? If there's no difference between local and cloud, you're never going to be able to disentangle that. And that's the big difference in the legacy software. Is it's certainly, it has good bones, as the expression goes. You starting from that basis, you can more easily move things. But I think that also speaks to some. I think it's a little bit of a negative trend in design and in development in general. Software design has become very cumbersome, and so dealing with that on the back end becomes increasingly difficult, right? So I think regulations like this, and part of the incentive back in the day, Carmack I think has spoke to this, and a lot of the old school devs at some point have addressed it if they speak publicly on it, was the very limiting factors of the hardware. The ceiling has really been lifted on a lot of that storage, processing graphically, most notably, and that has definitely encouraged huge drift and bloat, as we say, in a lot of the end product, and that makes it difficult for for consumers to deal with some of the end result, right, the product, and it certainly makes serviceability more difficult, right? How much of software is a service industry, right, at this point in time, versus kind of a production industry? It's kind of it's a philosophical point to some extent, but I think what would be beneficial, having seen this from from the DOS and IBM 8080 era of when I started messing around on computers. I'd say moving in a direction and encouraging industry, whether from a consumer standpoint, regulatory standpoint, all of that, to move into more discrete production, discrete modes of production in terms of actual, when a product is done, it's done, and the domain, deciding on a domain. Is this really going to be all cloud based? Are you going to is it going to run out of browser? That's stuff that should really be more defined, because a lot of it has moved into pure experimentalism, just based on the wide open space that hardware has enabled it to, in my opinion, and I think this will help move it more in that direction. Do anyone want to speak to that point, or any of those points, I should say? Do you agree with me on that, or?
I honestly think that, like, when it comes to this, yeah, it's definitely moving towards services, and there's like financial incentive behind that, because if you're running a big company, you probably prefer to make produce some service that people pay regularly than depending on some products that you launch once in a while. So it's definitely like more incentives to go into the service side of things more than product side of things. And I think this is going to be ultimately the hill that the battle will take place on within the European Union. Because I would expect them to do something like, okay, we're just gonna add a sticker or like an icon on a game cover that has to say that this is going to be a service game with a limited lifetime. You know, that may be the end result of everything that's going on around this in European Union, because you know, that's how they may interpret it, because it sounds maybe amazing for you from North America, but you know, it's still politicians, and very often second-grade politicians that didn't make it too far in their home country, so they've been moved to the European Parliament. So you know, like there's multiple different angles. This is one. Another one that can be taken is the, say, cultural, historical one, right? Because I don't know how you have that in Canada or in States, but European Union is like trying to preserve local cultures in a way, because they provide a lot of grants and stuff. So if you look at it through the angle of like the cultural history preservation in a way, that may be interesting to them, but they may end up focusing on like European games only. Like, is this game made in Europe? All right, so now you have to make sure that it can run even after you stop the service. You know, you never know which weird angle they will take, especially with this kind of like open request that this whole petition is towards the European Union Parliament.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree that it is subject. I mean, yeah, it is designed as a measure to be subject to interpretation because of the variability, you know, of the software involved, the platform, the software. So yeah, that's going to be a factor. And we can't tell. We're not dealing with set qualities in terms of the products we're speaking about in somewhat general terms. We're not dealing with finished legislation. So there is a degree of, you know, we have to address it in more general terms. But when it comes down to it, these trends are you know, they're concrete enough to speak to. You know, such as a kind of a platform creep and all of that, and the trend is clearly not been in favor of consumers, I would say, for some time, and that's pretty much global. I'd say the incentives are to maintain a live service, or, you know, some kind of service-based game platform, entertainment platform. Yeah, they're moving away from calling it games and gamers, right, and more in terms of you know, maybe services and players, right? And I agree, a disclaimer would be one way of addressing it. I'm hopeful that that's not the end result, though, because it would be a very cheap way of servicing the request. Go ahead.
Like I said, it might end up that way. There's a funny I noticed a chat message. Saying this game will die sticker on games, which is similar to the if you smoke in Canada, anyways. There's now a regulation that you have to put stickers on the packaging, external packaging, you know, warning about lung cancer and all that stuff. And I remember the stickers got so severe that seeing I don't smoke, but seeing a pack of cigarettes and the sticker was "Smoking will kill you," and it was just like, whoa, okay. So now we're gonna have games where they say, you know, this game will die.
Yeah, that's an extremely unideal and unsatisfactory outcome. I mean, I believe there's a component of citizen comment and you know, involvement that is post petition, so where they're working on it, and I do hope the feedback continues there, and you know, the public is given their option to input around that and make sure that this does not, die in undignified death in parliamentary process, which would be ironic outcome. I mean, if that were the case, but we're clearly not looking to let that go. And once a petition like this has been raised, that's a lot of interest from gamers, expressed in a way that's kind of already unconventional. A lot of effort went into promoting that, even though it did come up at the last minute to get pushed through as a petition. The interest was clearly there. It just maybe needed a little catalyst. And a little e-drama can, I guess, can sometimes do that. So whatever. We'll take what we can get there, just to get the message out, get gamers, to pay attention where we already have that interest, right? We're already involved to make sure that we get what we want, right? I mean, gaming it's a quest. It's a it's a journey. So, what I what I want to say is around like ID and the legacy software. Well, all that will that lives as the best example. That's certainly not the only one. There's communities around Command and Conquer that was a great legacy franchise. That's an EA title, series of titles, and EA. Just a little recap there. Eventually, when they got the series to a certain point, there's a plateau in the series. They kind of changed the formula, and that's one example of a game that the franchise kind of didn't. It kind of drifted, right? So the community maintained they maintained that over the years, over the decades, in fact. And that's one example. We have another I'll point out is RuneScape that's gone into community servers, community maintenance, community brews in terms of mods and content and stuff, and all of that significantly as pertains to some of the objections that industry has raised. And I did want to read the text here, but I'll proceed to that after my point. Basically, that's all a successful model of how it can be done, right? It's not an impossible thing to have a technically maintainable and community, where there's the interest is actually there in the community. Gamers bring our own initiative. That's the whole point of being a gamer, right? And we do that a lot. A lot of us do have either artistic or technical skills on some level. There are many gamers that don't, right? I mean, mainstream gamers, but for us on the PC platform, and certainly maybe with a little more legacy experience, we do bring that. We bring that a lot. And it's important not to discount, don't discount the community, don't discount your customers. You might just be underestimating them and finding that from a business standpoint, you sell yourself short. I mean, that's one thing. Hopefully they see that and they care enough about that to give us what we want, right, and make that possible. But that's why this initiative popped up. They're not. We don't feel as consumers that our market, our market influence is being respected, right? It's not really being addressed in terms of the demands that we have, the things we want as consumers. Artistically, I think.
Yeah, can we talk about the artistic part of it, because it's kind of sort of intertwined. Like the big gaming companies, they want to provide you like a long-term service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody is aiming at like Fortnite or like Roblox level kind of thing, right? And they want to run this game forever,
Yep.
right? And there's like a limited number of people that play video games, right? Let alone that given genre, right? So for
Right.
them it's incentive, because it's more like providing like a service, like electricity or gas or whatever, whatever utility you use or internet connection. They want that. But that's kind of hurting the creative potential of the whole industry in many ways, because those people that are locked into that service kind of games, they will less go and look at like the smaller, let's say AA or more like independent stuff. So it's like, which already there's a lot of titles being launched like all the time, right? So the discoverability is very like difficult thing for indie games, which I can speak to now because I'm dealing with that. And it's not really helpful if like the big guys decide to lock people into service they regularly play and ignore the rest of the industry. So it's like creatively and culturally kind of very regressive in many ways, even if they go with like different seasons for the game and they do whatever Halloween or Easter or Christmas event in the game. That's not really it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's not like a new big game that comes up with something really good or revolutionary every 3, 4, 5 years. They want to keep these services alive for like decades.
Right. And that.
I guess.
Go ahead, John.
I guess what I would say is, I've heard a couple things that gamers or innovators. Gamers have this great desire to build, maintain, be artists. And the little guy has trouble competing with the big guys. And I guess I would challenge everybody to deeply think about the possibility of this. I know you guys called it futuristic, but the future is here. The little guys can build something together in this collaborative way using what I call Web3 technology, which is not crypto NFT crap, and you can win, and then you don't need the petition with 1.5 million names on it. Those 1.5 million people can get behind and build something new, exciting, innovative in the same way that Dune was innovative, and there you go, you're done, you've won. That's the game. That's the new game, and that's in my mind. Coding is the game, and this new world is the game.
Yeah, John, you bring up a fair point. I think the legacy, the background, right, in the industry is there was kind of more of a. You're familiar with the old masters paintings, right? Like paintings very intricate, the classical style. Right, so the stuff you see in museums, that's where we're coming from in the kind of distant rearview mirror. In terms of game development, it's all handcrafted, it's bespoke, it's very labor intensive, very technical in coding and basis, and we've drifted to a point where we kind of have a McDonald's version of of a lot of development, right? And that's dissatisfied a lot of gamers, right? And the incentive right now for from a financial standpoint for them is, as Martin points out, it's kind of seasonal thematization and all that. And the irony is they're they'll preserve it indefinitely with light theme changes, new skin changes, new skins, window dressing, okay? But the guts of the stuff don't really change. There's not a lot of technical innovation there. The artistry is mediocre. I mean, a lot of it. That's where we get the season passes and all that sort of thing. So what I think I agree that the incentives are there for gamers ourselves, right? Take it into our own hands, and this speaks to a little bit of the failure of the industry, or a little bit of a short where the industry is a shortcoming. That generated a petition, right? Gamers, instead of going and buying and playing games, signed a petition. We took time to do that. That says a lot. 1.5 million gamers signed a petition. Wow. Gamers. That's not a very usual event. It's worth significantly, significance is worth examining a little bit, but that's for some other discussion. But it's a really, there's a lot of there's a wide gulf between what gamers would like to see happen, right, and experientially, and what developers are consistently developing. And that they're in that gap because I don't think we're incentivizing or they're just not responding to the incentives gamers are providing industry. Lies a lot of potential for what, like coding, like vibe coding. That's one example. Okay, gamers working with AI. Okay, working with AI. Non-conventional development. Non-conventional development, and they're again using we'll say a crypto model, not crypto in terms of currency, right? Because that's one category. We're talking crypto. What not everyone realizes, and this is an important point to bring out, and underpins Web3. It's actually a strategy and a platform. Right, and it's also a way of communicating, right? It's like a network protocol. It's all of that, right?
Right.
So it's the final layer of web where the whole cake is the whole sandwich is assembled. All right, it's a full package, and that's not true of contemporary design. It's not obviously where it came from. It's built layer by layer. That's how you get Web 1 and 2. And that's traditional software. You start in a certain level, and now we have all the way into the cloud and all that stuff. And that's industry is dabbling with that, but the artistry is unfortunately the way industry is pursuing it. The artistry is suffering. And that's where gamers are really getting hit, I think, right? That's where we're really noticing that so much more could be done. I agree with you. The potential is there for that kind of like a blockchain. The technology is blockchain at the core of it. For something like that to encode either the server side or user data or both. I think from a technical standpoint, and this is important for any lay people who are listening or anyone would review this. There's issues with latency potentially, right, and timeliness with respect to delivery of service that technology strategy traditionally has not been able to deliver, right? So I think things like a BitTorrent, right, a Bitstream sort of thing, it approaches it. If there's some kind of mediation or integration of kind of a bit technology with a crypto or with a blockchain, right? Then
there is. There's like if you think about BitTorrent as like just a bunch of files with whatever magnet tags or whatever they call them on it. Now you can have things like you can have IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, and you can just boot off of an IPFS address, and it's like a BitTorrent, but it's like the next level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the tools in your toolkit. The other tool, like I mentioned before, is identity. You mentioned latency. There's and I guess the other thing is, in some ways, I am talking about crypto, but what I'm talking about is you can use your crypto ID with no currency as your login, and you never have any cryptocurrency at all. You just use your wallet to log in. And the other thing is you can take a very small amount of cryptocurrency, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, but others, and you can burn that. You can burn data into the ledger. That's what, I don't know if you ever heard the term ordinal inscriptions, but people have been doing that a long time on different ledgers. There's one called BSV, which has tons of data in it, written from all over the world, China, the US, images, pictures. Some of these ledgers are very, sub-second, responses, a new block every few seconds. So a lot of those issues have been solved. A lot of the tools are there. Yes, they've been created by these, people that were kind of scammers with NFTs or whatever. But
some of them are. I guess there's a few that are good, but the technology isn't necessarily. It gets tainted.
Yeah,
it gets tainted.
The technology gets a bad rap, just like BitTorrent does, right? BitTorrent is a technology that's different from pirating movies.
Only pirates use it. Well, that's just not true at all. It's famous for that,
right,
of course, but that's not fundamentally. That's not it. So, Yeah, I would be very interested, and I think we all have a lot to learn. People that have been in tech and people that are just getting into tech, or enthusiastic about it, about the potential of that stuff, because it's plain centralized models. Speaking a little abstractly, but not too much. So, you have things like the CrowdStrike that went down. There's a huge issue with that globally, right? The over reliance on centralized systems, including in other cases, different company, different scenario. Cloudflare, which is used for kind of screening traffic online. There's been some issues there as well, and when we are looking at something like we're looking now, a separate but extremely relevant topic that's coming up, where biometric ID is being mandated online, kind of out of the blue. I mean, as far as implementation, it's a really big topic to address, and it's not something that's I think it's nothing to rush on, but it is nonetheless kind of rushing up on us as an issue because of all the proposals out there and the legislation underway. I think it speaks to a lack of stewardship, right, and a lack of maybe foresight in some of these companies and even governments, policy, addressing widespread consumer day-to-day needs, and even citizen needs accessing the web. So yeah, I think the decentralized stuff is going to have it's going to be fundamental, and a lot of the initiative, because we can't necessarily rely on parliamentary process to be quick, right, for one thing, and there's no guaranteed result as to what the final product is. I believe the momentum is probably going to continue to come back to the to the gamers, to consumers ourselves, to say, yeah, what can we do? What can, just of our own initiative.
Stop buying games from people that you believe are likely going to disappoint you.
That's a fair point. We've been recommending against what do you call, like a pre-purchase here, a pre-order, for some time, and yeah, consumer responsibility cannot be overstated as it's crucial, right? A lot of us have been willing to go the distance and give the benefit of the doubt to large companies that put out a regular product.
I would say it's better from gamers to just buy early access of indie games by people that did other good smaller games before than like pre-purchasing, pre-ordering any big games. That's where it actually helps the industry. If you help our guys that are like struggling to finish the game because publishers are not interested, and it ends up being a good game, that's higher probability of that in indie, I would say.
Yeah, I would tend to agree from a business perspective. Things like early access do help, especially when it comes to like the discoverability level, especially on like algorithmic driven things like Steam or, wherever the algorithm of insert various company will take you. Games, but it's funny because you'll see games like Penny Blood, which is going through a lot of financial stuff, which was a spiritual successor to Shadow Hearts. It was a Kickstarter. Super unique game. No publisher will currently touch it at all. So it's getting the word out, and unfortunately, it is kind of putting your money where your mouth is, essentially, and back what you like and buy what you like kind of situation. And there is the speak with your wallet aspect to that.
Yeah.
I know.
The industry as a whole, though, I think, like Martin was saying, it's driving to live services. I mean, how much did Sony spend on something like Concord? Sorry. $300 million or something, not counting the studio. It was up for what? 3 weeks or something, and then
Yeah.
oh, hey, we killed the game and we killed the studio. Cool.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know,
one we know about, and there was multiple of those kind of
Yeah.
projects that they
Mhm.
didn't even talk about that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
probably
It's like the
canceled internally.
producers.
So
Yeah.
So like, I don't think the industry has realized like there's only so much room. It's like everything else. What happened in streaming when it was just Netflix and maybe one other? It was fine. People didn't care because you can still get all your content. Same with streaming services and music. And then everything became fractured again. It became cable,
Mhm.
essentially.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
And-
very fair point. Fair
And
point. Yeah.
everybody hates it because everything's everywhere and garbage as far as that. And guess what happened with live services? You had a ton of them as far as like multiplayer specific games. And now it's narrowed down to like these super, designed by committee kind of games. And I'll
That's
put it that
the
way.
big fact. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna jump in here. I think Bill is has been very generous with your time. I appreciate you tabling with us here, Bill. So I think he's gonna go. Is there anything you want to mention? Any site you want to bumper, or any projects you're working on? Anything you want to mention before you head out?
No, I'm just always working on games, so just look me up on Twitter, Blue Sky under Ocular Malice. You can find my games and my links there. But yeah, it was a great conversation. But hope things turn out better for the world,
Yeah.
for the gaming world.
Here.
We'll see how it goes.
I'll put your socials in our description and make sure that that those are there.
Great.
So, all right, you
Thanks.
have a really good night. All right.
Okay, night.
All right.
Thanks, Bill. Have a good one.
Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and adjust our configuration here for the table. So do let me know if there's any if any of you has to go at some point. But we can continue on for a bit, and so I think I think continuing from Dark, from what you were saying, like there is a the trend is. And Martin as well, you're saying that the incentives are there to keep running a live service charade, okay? Kind of becomes something like that. And there's a guy out there, he does, he's an author, privacy lecturer, tech guy, big tech guy, in his, a variety of ways. Cory Doctorow, you might have heard of him.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and he coined very famously, and maybe the best thing he's done, right? He's done a lot of stuff, good stuff, really worth recognition, but I think he nailed it when he called the trend in on the internet, right, as a whole, in shitification, right? And that's, that's the process of things just getting shittier, okay? Online, it's pretty obvious. A lot of it has to do with, like, ads, whatnot. We're we've witnessed the decline of the internet, and that's ironic because it's never been how shall I put it? It's never been, I guess, smoother in a way, right? When we talk about even at the boundary, right, on the threshold of like a Web3, it's never been with OAuth, which has been overused. All right. Basically, the web is tighter than ever, more seamless than ever, more seamlessly, accessible from cloud to desktop and vice versa. All that good stuff. Potentially, there's a lot of accessibility there. And what we're faced with is, and in gaming, this is true too. What we're faced with is a lack of I think a lack of vision, right? In terms of there seems to be a lack of foresight that's resulted in a lack of good customer experience, user experience, and that's the driving force behind a lot of this. The answer is not, I think, more live service, but that's where a lot of the financial incentive is. I think this will be kind of one for Martin and John, a little bit to dig in a little bit on, because Martin is our business analyst and can speak more to the, more to the trends and the history of it and the where it's going. What do you think about? I mean, assuming the move is a little bit more incentivized than it is right now, Martin, because it's we don't know how quick these moves are going to come from the regulatory side, and consumers aren't making any giant watershed movements that we know of, right? Apart from signing a petition in the EU, which is pretty significant. We the trends in gaming are kind of, at this point, a lot of consumers are just drifting away from mainstream gaming, right? That's one side of it. What do you think the potential is there? Do you think with the right incentives, initiatives that the companies take, that they can kind of turn this in a more favorable direction for the live service and maybe more traditional productized games, or do you think it's really kind of, the momentum is probably going to push it in more in the direction John is talking about? It's going to be more user driven.
Well, this is like, the companies are there to make money, right? So they will try anything to optimize the profitability of their business, right? And right now in the corporate heads, it seems like the best way is to have stable income for the whole company regularly, because you make a service game where people purchase stuff, or like pay a subscription like Game Pass, right? But there within, with, for example, with the whole Game Pass thing, that's like a little bit of a tricky thing, because the Game Pass wouldn't really work if they wouldn't have a steady supply of decent games, right? Like nobody would really go for that. So a lot of companies will keep trying to make these service games. Like I think the best way, the best possible outcome to this that European Union can take, probably, but I think a lot of countries are already taking that within Europe. If I would compare it to, would be like film industry. You know how like the whole world is being bombarded by all of these superhero movies that
Oh,
people
do I
that
ever?
Hollywood
Oh, do
that
we
Hollywood
ever?
makes,
If
right?
you
So
ever were a film fan, a theater goer, man, the slop train
yeah,
never ends.
I hate those movies. I also reviewed movies when I was like university student, so I hate these kind of like superhero movies. But that's pretty much what they're trying to do with games, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh
with
boy.
movies, you have to make a product, right? But it's still within the same kind of genre, the same type of story, the
For
same
now.
character.
For
Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah,
the
over and
technology
over.
is changing there too.
But there you have this thing within, at least within Europe, there's like film funds that support like smaller creators to make like local films, right?
Yeah.
Like Europe has this perspective like free market, but also let's support like local, like culturally worthy production, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if this is correctly interpreted to whoever in European Parliament, it can end up in like some boosting of like indie game development through some government made funds for like actual culture enrichment, whatever you would call it, like for culture growth within this industry, or within this platform that video games are. So that's like potential, but I don't think there's anything that the government can do, or like, any rules they can set that would make the companies like go off course, go somewhere else than the service direction they're heading in right
Right.
now.
Yeah. Capital rules, and um, all you can do is create something that's 10 times better than what's out there, and then they become irrelevant, right? That's the future. That's the next
Yeah.
thing. That's and I'm telling you, the tools are there. The tools have been developed. It's possible. It's just a matter of researching them and bringing them in. And that's what I'm passionate about. I put my link tree in the other channels. So if you want to share it, it's mylastname.org. I just to when a long time ago I got the org domain for Wriggler. So if you go to wriggler.org, you'll see my link tree, and that's I keep that up to date. Keep in touch, and I'm always I'm because instead of the profit model where you see my girlfriend in the background, instead of the profit model where that everybody's complaining about, I think that we have to say, you know what, building things with integrity, you're not going to get that level of profit. So don't don't count on the investors. Don't try to court the investors, but just build something great and get people excited about what you're doing. And we have all sorts of great ways to get payment for things now. I think probably for the rest of my life I could do training about this stuff that I'm talking about, and that's what I need to be doing. So
Yeah, evangelizing a new tech. There's I think you're right on that. It's the potential is there. The power of that. The fundamental. The fundamental capability of that technology. It does offer a real direction for self-empowered consumers to take it upon ourselves and look into it. Will it all drop into our hands? Probably not, right? Nothing worth it does. But on the other hand, it's a lot more accessible than I think like a traditional mainframe coding, or a lot of the more steeped server client design, right? I think blockchain is just that much easier to dive into, isn't it? Isn't it, John? What do you say?
well, it's very weird. It's very different. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. You know, nobody's ever heard of this guy Satoshi Nakamoto. It's all incredibly strange. But once you begin to wrap your brain around it, it's intriguing.
Hmm.
And what can be done with money can be done with the way I think about it is, they used to have these things called paper checks, and you could write a check for somebody for $0.00,
Hmm.
and then write something in the memo field. Okay, well, now that memo field is enormous,
Okay.
and everything is hacked on top of that. It's a hack too. That's the other thing. I don't know if Satoshi, whoever they are, intended for this, but
Hmm.
the reality is people immediately began to hack data into crypto, and that's what I call the public blockchain.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and with like $1, you have enough of this stuff to last you for years.
Right.
You can write all sorts of stuff with just that small amount of money.
Yeah, yeah, and it's encoded what forever, as long as it's maintained, or you download the finished work product. It's there. It's all there, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, it's
unkillable.
see,
It's unkillable. Let's call it.
it's
Let's coin it.
unkillable. Yes, it's your sprite, let's say, for your little game or whatever, is burned into the ledger. It can't be pulled back out. And as long as the blockchain is going, and they've been going for years, it's
Hmm.
going to be there, and you can count on it. You can
Right.
pull it back out. And that's how I show. That's what I show you how to both read and write to this thing.
Okay. Okay. And I mean,
And then on top of
importantly.
that, it also is money, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, it can be. I think blockchain is fundamentally, there's a lot of conflation, right? And rightly so, because there's concentrations of use, right? It's like think of all the things that are coded in C. We're talking about the whole galaxy of software out there basically has some C foundation. But it's not just business software, it's not just operating systems, it's pretty much everything. And in the same way, foundationally, blockchain technology has that same, I won't say exactly the same potential, because one is a language, and the other is more of a platform, but it has that same kind of versatility, right? It has a lot of range of potential exploitability, in technical and even practical terms, right? It can be used as currency.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
People would swap games, right, like physical softwares, in barter at one point, as currency, still do. So these, there's facets to these things that are outside of the conventional siloed top-down, kind of market, captive market ideology or perspective that they're kind of trying to shoehorn everyone and keep everyone into. And I agree. It's worth looking at any way to it's worth looking at alternatives rather than stay stuck in something like that. And particularly if you don't want to be, if it's not offering
Right.
you
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you want. So
And it's not just about games. It can be about all sorts. It's Web3 is literally the next thing that can replace Facebook and you know
mm,
Twitter or
well,
whatever. But don't expect Mark Zuckerberg to build it,
no,
right?
no,
Don't look at these people that you're already upset at and say, okay, you have to do this for us. That's not it. It's about you now have control over your identity. Um, you can have resources. You can have shared resources and coordinate with each other, and
hmm
you can build everything with something that's um, better. It's the next level beyond BitTorrent, and
absolutely, absolutely.
it's all there.
It really is the new BitTorrent in terms of its potential and applications. It's a very fine point. Just because it's a little futuristic oriented, that is where things are headed, right? There's whatever pace industry and consumers take is definitely moving in that direction. The days of huge server farms and concentrations of GPUs, and that's only going to be really for AI, and cloud. In terms of what consumers are going to deal with, it's probably going to be a lot more stuff like that. I mean, a lot. That's the consumer-facing side. So I definitely see what you're saying, and I'm going to agree with you substantially that that's where things are headed. Also, probably going to be more beneficial than a lot of the walled garden stuff that we've seen in the last decade or so. Right, a lot of it has been a little bit lackluster. Um, you know, like Dark says, they get you on a streaming service, and then you find, they've killed streams. That's kind of like they take away. You get some raft, you get a platter of options, and then they all get revoked at some point, and you get a bunch of ads. Consumers aren't really having it. I mean, look at first there was cord cutting, then there's dropping all of the different streaming services, and like when are the incentiviers, okay, whatever the incentives are, whatever the company is, the model, when are they going to get the point that consumers want a consistent quality of service? And sure, we're willing to pay for it. I mean, we keep the subscriptions and all that, but it can't be. You can't. It can't be a bait and switch scenario, right? And this is what so many are complaining about. That's really the big objection, and the evaporating value. It's the same kind of thing from different ends. So yeah, I agree. I think you called it self-sovereign, and I think the word is really.
Self-sovereign, yeah.
Yeah, I think the word is that and ownership, right? Because the one thing you don't get with any of these services, they're very ephemeral, they're very transient, is you don't get ownership. And if you don't get that and you don't have the practical enjoyment of it, what are you really paying for? What's the what are the consumers getting? So I think that's just it. Maybe we do have to take some of that infrastructure of ownership, take responsibility to
Right.
take it into our own
Yeah.
hands.
I say make that the game. The
hmm
game is building this new thing.
So, well, some people geek out more that direction. Some people are going to want more of a distinct, traditional story based or other game experience. But I absolutely agree with you. There's
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
development is its own quest, right? And yeah,
That's
so
right.
I could get down with that. I could definitely.
And and for me personally, see, because I'm a back end guy. I can envision the servers and run the servers and optimize the servers,
hmm
and I never got around to build the front end of anything.
hmm
And so it was very hard for me to show somebody something that made sense to them. But
hmm
now
hmm
just with Chat GPT, I'm not even using any of the fancy extensions. just with ChatGPT, it can build the front end for me, and I just cut and paste it, and it's like I have my own development team now, and I
Right.
think that everybody will be able to do that, and just uh, and that I think eventually we'll do micropayments to each other,
Right.
and it's even bigger than games. Like if you think about like a rideshare service, if you think about something, that the company takes most of the money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, to make sure that your driver is not going to, I guess, rob you, right? But if
Sure.
the
Right. An
drive if
escrow situation. Right. Exactly.
yeah, but if the passenger can trust the driver and the driver knows they're going to get paid, then you don't need Uber. You don't need that
Mm-hmm.
company.
Mm.
You just need the app, and the two people can can deal directly with each other and
Right.
be safe and keep all the money. And
Right. Right. And
Leo's here to help.
I think it's really worth pointing out because when gamers want to focus on the entertainment, we want to focus on the art. We should focus on the art. That's the I mean that's the consumer value for us. That is the experience. We're seeking an experience, and what we don't it's the process of buying is so simplified, right? Or what we considered buying, to the point where these companies have grown very big and very expectant of certain revenues, and we forget, I think, as customers to some extent, the importance of custom, right? Which is make it a little bit more personal of an experience, make it personalize the buying endeavor, and where possible, where necessary, negotiate, and own the process a little more. Okay, own the process a little more, so that it's not so seamless that they could walk away with everything as they've been wont to do in recent times. And so, as much as crypto has whatever reputation it's going to get, and there's been bad guys in it. There's been a lot of it. The majority of it,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
the majority of it is actually, it's very quietly people just buying sandwiches and hair appointments and whatever else, and they could they have it treated like a currency. Okay,
Right.
there's the good and bad things you're going to use it for. People might misuse as the principle, but the fact of the matter is it's just another currency option, for many people, and for all intents and purposes. And being able to make your data, right, your information interest, and your financial interest in a transactional sense, having those meet up. I mean, they do anyway, although we maybe conceptually separate that out for ourselves in how we traditionally purchase things. But maybe that paradigm is not serving us so well in a modern world where it's much easier to spend it, and far less easy or impossible to call it back, or call for some accountability, right? Some quality standards. Certainly after the fact, right, or any kind of service after the fact. That's
Yeah,
far
yeah.
be it for
I just
that.
don't. Yeah, I don't think instead of gaming, just think about like Microsoft Word. I mean, I you
Oh,
know,
oh,
used to be able to purchase Word and Excel and whatever,
oh yeah,
power, whatever, and then that was it. You had that, and even if they came out with a new version of Windows, it would still work, or maybe you could update it for, $40 or whatever.
yeah,
But
sure,
it was
sure,
yours. You bought it. It
right,
was yours,
right,
and that went away. Now you're renting your word processor.
absolutely,
How
absolutely,
weird is that? Because they
right,
can, and everybody just goes for it. They say, "Oh, okay, that's the way it is now."
yeah,
So
yeah.
stop doing that.
I
you know.
couldn't agree more. Part of our mandate here, duty is advocate for consumers, gamers, but advocate consumer education. And yeah, sometimes we just got to own it. Like, yeah, no, you got to stop battle passing and renting and all that stuff. You got to think twice. A dark
No, you just got to read. You just got to read your 43-page EULA of these nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
actually
Sure.
understand what the heck you're
the
signing
the
up for.
scroll of how you're getting screwed as a consumer. Just yeah, come on.
But-
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But to kind of Martin's point earlier, though, I think the live service stuff, though, I think it only has enough player base and enough player base and enough business models that you're going to end up in a situation much like you do with the bigger companies. Like for every Coke, there's a Pepsi. Like you have in consoles, how many choices do you have? 3. How many? You know, and that's debatable with Xbox currently. But you know,
Yeah, that's going to go away. That's going to go away. Actually,
well, it's like what do you have with sneakers? You have Adidas and Nike and Reebok. Okay, you got 3. Like the whole point is, it boils down to you're gonna end up having a market where it's just these big live services games, and every one of those markets you might have little kind of off brands and kind of stuff, but like they're regional, they're niche, they're known, but they're not known. So like you'll find that stuff, but it's not going to be like the mainstream stuff. So these big companies, the EAs, well, not Activision anymore, but like, you know, the EAs and like those style companies, all they're going to be looking for is that sustainable income, because then they don't have to do anything. I mean, as much as I like Valve for most part, they are, besides doing things like Deadlock and Artifact, as a developer, like game developer themselves, how long did it take them to update Team Fortress? Just saying.
Yeah.
So like, you know, and don't get me wrong, I love the work that they've done with like the Steam Deck and all the other stuff, for a lot of different reasons. But as far as like game preservation and that stuff, I think companies like GOG and GOG and a lot of those guys are one of the few that are still at least making a concentrated effort for the most part where they can, with fighting some of the stupid in the industry as far as, you know, from a business perspective and just everything in general. Because I know when I buy a game from GOG, like I have 20 terabytes of cold storage stuff from GOG that I've bought, that literally, in case the internet goes away, I've burned another 20 gigs worth of Blu-ray, or 20 terabytes worth of Blu-rays. So if everything goes away,
way to go.
I have literally taken ownership of everything that, like, I don't like this, I'm going to go in this direction. So I've jumped through all the hoops, and as a Linux user, that's a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
So, but from a business perspective, what these guys are going to find, though, I think is, and Martin, you can probably speak more to the like you mentioned, you haven't been on like the multiplayer end for a while. The single player people who buy single player games, what's the one thing they like? They like to feel like they own the thing, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I would even say,
Definitely.
like Witcher in 2015, like really set a good standard. You know, like if you buy it on GOG, it's DRM free, like you just mentioned, right? Like they just want to own the game, and then sure you can sell them some DLCs if they're good enough. Again, Witcher, really good DLCs. And that people are absolutely fine with that, because it doesn't feel like it's being cut out of the game or that it's being fed to you just to make more money. Technically it is, but it's a good piece of content. Like buy content, enjoy the content, move on to the next content, but be able to go back to the content. And Witcher said that really well, and it keeps going with any like really hardcore single player game that I worked on. Like people just want to own it and be able to just play it wherever they want.
So, as an example, to use Warhorse as an example, I was not I bought Kingdom Come Deliverance, like GOG, when 2 came out on GOG. I waited until Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out on GOG to buy it,
Yeah.
Like, and that was at full price. You know, the Royal Edition, I believe, or whatever. It's like that to me. Like, I'm speaking with my wallet at this point with stuff. If I'm gonna, you know, so there's a level of where consumers have to own some stuff as gamers. If you want your stuff, and I'm not even talking like feature and technology and blockchain and all the other stuff. I'm talking in this moment.
Mhm.
If you want to own your stuff, you really have to actually go out of your way to be principled enough. And I hate the soapbox kind of mentality. You have to be stick to that as much as possible. There are games that I have bought because they are an indie dev. I can't, they made the game Sense Cyberpunk Ghost Story. It's a 2.5D horror game based around like the old Clock Tower games. Like that's the mentality of the game, but it's done with a Hong Kong kind of vibe in cyberpunk. Really cool. I bought in that game. I kid you not. I have it on digital on Switch. I have it physical for PC. I have it on GOG. I have it on Steam. I have it for PS4 and Switch because this guy, all because the developer originally wanted to make a game for the Vita. And he, despite the technical limitations of the hardware, he still delivered the game to the Vita. And that was originally why I backed the game. That to me is awesome. Like, those are the stories I like hearing and supporting for like indie devs and AA and that kind of stuff, because they get it. They get the mentality of it's like, I'm not I own an Xbox. I'm not an Xbox Game Pass subscriber at all. Why? Because why am I gonna go play MechWarrior 5 with all the DLC and everything else and just watch it go, oh, it's not you can't play no more because it rotational games. That is super stupid and super annoying to me as a gamer. And I hate it when it happens to TV shows that I'm streaming that just go away. I hate it when it's stuff on music that I'm like, what albums that I'm listening to that just go away. And it's like, why am I going to do that with games?
So you're saying that you have terabytes of a GOG game, and if it goes away, you would still be able to play the game, and that's awesome. Is that correct? Is that what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have cold storage, 20 terabytes worth of GOG games, because
so I would say the next step would be, if the GOG game goes away, then it might be possible for you to be a broker of that for other people and get paid in crypto money when they access your if you make it available.
I think you're speaking to distributing per se, and that would be a facet of licensures that's kind of outside the scope of SKG.
Yeah,
but maybe there is a model. There is a model.
Right.
So I know there's guys that currently I'm not going to throw them publicly under the bus when it comes to Internet Archive, but there are people who upload games to Internet Archive. Example, Transformer games, not currently available on any platform unless you go back to PS3, PS2, Wii U. Guess what? They're available on PC, and the guy made sure they're fixed and the things run as they should, and they're available on the Internet Archive. So like the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, all those games are currently available for PC.
Nice.
No. See, this is what I'm talking. This is the preservation stuff, and I come from.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. Where it's, I don't. I get the business aspect of it, but like in licensing and all the other nonsense. But what irks me is stuff like that. A company that is worth Microsoft's amount of money is just sitting on this, and they're not going to pay Hasbro or whatever.
That's right.
Put these games back out,
or
make them available, or put them out in a DRM free format in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And these guys will sit there and talk about, oh, video games are art. if you can't even get the point where you're like, oh, hey, why am I not as a capitalist, why are you not actually going to take the money that could be coming into you by providing these as a, with the mods or whatever?
Yeah.
You're an idiotic company, in my view. And don't preach about preservation. That's what I hate.
Yeah.
So someone could
a very good point.
crack the DRM on those games and put them out on torrent, right? Is that fair?
I mean, conceivably, it could be done anywhere. What's your point there?
Yeah. Conceivably, it's already done on most of these anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then the only other challenge is, how do you find the torrent links? And what I'm saying is, you can write those into the blockchain, so they're always there.
Right.
So then if other people want that, then they can have a copy of the torrent, and it's
well, John. Although that's technically fascinating, and I personally am fascinated by it, that kind of distribution model, because of its stronger presence in the piracy side of gaming, it tends to be, definitely tends to be looked skeptically upon at this point in time.
Sure. Yeah.
It's part of it. One of the models, one of the early models, and I actually brought this out in more of a business setting very recently, is that one of the early models was actually shareware, right? That's how Doom, speaking of Doom, Fundamental, was distributed. You can copy that floppy, and it's part of the license, right? And it goes with it, right? Like it's actually incorporated in. It's kind of closer to things like a FOSS model, GPL. Not so much so, because of course those are, they are for free ultimately. But shareware was, just a little background on it, is basically you get a preview of something, you get a demo version of software, and later on you get a key, or you could order separately the full product. But you have the authority, right, within the license. You have the authority to distribute it, right, to copy it, distribute it, and for others to do the same. And that actually was a highly effective model, and allowed the gamer, the gaming customer, to say, hey, I love this. Why don't you take a look? Do you want to try it? Do you want to copy? And you could very easily go ahead and let that, let your next gamer to enjoy that go out the door with a copy, where they could wet their whistle, check out the basics of the game, and then when they're ready to, they upgrade it. Some people, they played the shareware one forever, but a lot. I mean, we're talking in revenue terms. The money spoke, and a lot registered. And I mean, it was a very popular model. It put Doom on the map. Duke 3D, my main jam, put them on the map, and that self-distribution is not, it's not scary. It's just not user empowered distribution. There is an industry inspired stigma around it. Shouldn't really be that way. Doesn't need to be that way. And I absolutely appreciate your enthusiasm, John, because it is future oriented perspective, but it harkens back to the user empowered legacy history of gaming. And I think we're moving in that direction again. Industry is they're not bringing it. They're bringing the wrong stuff. So we need, let's take care of the finances. Let's take care of the, in terms of transactions, in terms of the distro. Okay, let's take care of encoding in terms of what the word is a ledger. Well, that's built in. We can't take these things for granted. A lot of that stuff it's kind of baked in, and it has good legs historically. So I think there's good viability for that. There's definitely good viability for that, and people should look at it. I want industry to compete. I want them to step up. And what Dark said, to me, it's the art. My goodness, at the end of the beginning of the interest and the end of the day, it's about the muse and engrossing yourself, enjoying it. either grinding or just, if you like the cinematics, there's all kinds of play styles, and you could switch it up. But just enjoying that, and the industry doesn't always appreciate that. They get too involved in their own blockchain, right? The traditional finance, right, blockchain, and that tends to eat, if not all, eat a lot. It eats out of the creative side. It certainly hasn't helped the bones of the software on the technical side. My goodness, the software bloat is outrageous. It's outrageous. As you sometimes get a 100 gigabyte game on a console. There's really no need for that. I mean, even with uncompressed textures. I mean, this is part of the things that Carmack solved back in the day. Right, what Bill was, brought up. Optimization. If you have no need to optimize, you have no need to, it's just production won't allow it, right? Management won't allow it. Finance, maybe at the end of the day, doesn't accommodate that from a technical standpoint. The end user suffers. It's experiential, degradation, and if the price of having a better experience and having reliability in terms of your purchases is, hey, we gotta wiki finance this, we got to do it ourselves in terms of having a blockchain. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. And to some extent I think it will be, whether it, whatever degree of popularity, and but it,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It can be very straightforward. If you're doing something great, then people can directly pay you in a crypto transaction that says exactly, it's very clear why they're paying you. And then they also immediately are seen to be this benevolent guy because it's all right there. It can all be seen, so they don't have to run around saying that they invest in the arts or promote the arts. You can see it. It's all in the ledger.
That's right.
It's
That's
all
right.
It can be very straightforward.
And
But
something
yeah,
else.
but the model right now is not good for any of this. We have to come up with a better model.
Yeah.
With integrity.
Yeah, I agree. The early coin and the mid coin era we're in, with respect specifically to it, is just a payment
Oh, yeah.
medium. It's very rocky. It's very rocky, and hence the reputational issues with it. It's I understand the skepticism, but the technology fundamentally, it's quality technology. You look at the guts, you look at fundamentals. A lot of good stuff there, and there's such a thing as smart contracts, which most people don't deal with. It's kind of a lot of money involved usually, but when it comes down to it, blockchain can contain its own contractual terms, much as like a GPL or something like that. Different avenues. But yeah, it can contain its own terms, so you don't have to read through a whole big thing, because if you're dealing within a certain chain link, right, maybe with a certain attribute, they can come with their own riders, so you know what you're getting, and if you're paying someone in it, they know what they're getting. It's a multifaceted thing. It's a three-dimensional sort of technology, so that's super important to grapple with, because the 2D walled garden top-down model we have now is really just hosing and screwing over a bunch of people. I think there's so many people who would say that from one standpoint or another. And it's usually the the bigger companies that are a little more guilty of it. But we want to give consumers choice. We want the option, and I think it's also a great incentive for indies and middle-sized studios to dabble and find find their niche in terms of maybe they do have a self-sustaining community of people that want to pay in alternative currency. And maybe it can be part of the game. I mean, there's a lot of games, gotcha and grindy massive multiplayer games, and I mean, at some point there should be some division there. You don't want an ethically difficult situation where people are grinding in game for out game currency, but it's also something, if it's advertised and it's adult player scenario, if you find that mining in game we're talking like mining in Skyrim, if you find if that turns out to be rewarding in the blockchain, well, have at it. It's not inconceivable. It's not inconceivable. So there's a lot of things like
Right. Yeah.
there's a lot of.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And more than likely, kind of what I'm talking about is you can still be paid. You can still monetize things in traditional ways with traditional currency. My main thing is that you can use this as a global database. It's very cheap to write to this global database,
Mm-hmm,
and everybody knows who everybody is.
That's right.
Because of your identity.
Right.
Now, is there the possibility of also using it as a currency? Absolutely, because it is a currency.
Right.
But the main thing is your little gaming sprite that you create. You can burn it right in there, and if people use it, they could use it for free, or
Yeah.
if they're good guys, they could pay you
Yeah.
for that every time they use it.
It could also be inconceivable. Big concepts here, right? It could also be an NFT. Not only is it in your in-game avatar,
it could be.
it turns out to also be tied to an NFT. Now, will people all want to go for this immediately because there's a fashion component to it? Maybe not. But the technology, what does it provide in terms of value? Deliverables. I say that's pretty deliverable. I'm hearing and I'm understanding that there's deliverability and asset holding in that. And that's kind of, at the end of the day, what gamers want. Yeah, we want our entertainment, but we don't want it to drift away. We don't want it to evaporate in front of us because some company, Thanos snaps their fingers. It's unacceptable, especially after payment is made. You can't do that. So what I'm hearing is I'm hearing that transaction costs are minimal, right, in terms of maintenance, prospectively, operation maintenance. Blockchain has very minimal requirements. Once you get it up and going, maintaining that blockchain, it doesn't require as much energy. It doesn't. Now, if you're minting new stuff and all, well, that's a little different. But in terms of just moving stuff around, once it's minted, when it's in the system, that's extremely marginal cost in energy and a bunch of other terms. So you're not going to have to worry about, we have to, you have to maintain your profile on the server and it's some huge expense and somebody has to have a central warehouse for it, because once it's in the chain, that's done. And you can't kill it because the chain is unkillable, right? A blockchain is, essentially if it's de-energized, that's the only ultimate thing, right? But then again, we're not going to be on the computer anyway if the whole system is de-energized.
Right.
So
if everybody that buys the game, let's say, if you give them an NFT, then that NFT lets them play the game. And then if they put that NFT on OpenSea right now today, and somebody else, buys that NFT from them, then that person can play the game.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it would
game
have self-contained
just
access
the
with the
person-
character, maybe, right?
Well, no, because the NFT could just be the rights to play the game.
Okay.
And their character. See, everybody's character is hooked to your identity. So now suddenly their character has the right to play the game. And you could sell them your little sword or whatever. Any of the pieces like today can be put on here. It's just that they don't want to do it.
Sure.
They don't want to do this.
The multi-party access key sort of thing, right? You have a certain grant, right, for a number of users, maybe that sort of situation.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, but if one of the users gets tired of the game, they can just sell it. They can resell it on. It's called OpenSea, right? That's where they sell the NFTs.
Okay. So that's one example. And the other side of it is what? If they just get tired of playing, right? They don't want to play their character, or whatever. It stays in the chain, right? It's an inert part of the ledger. So the operational overhead becomes way factored down when you consider something like that. If it could be really made into
right, yeah. It can just sit on the chain for 3 years. And it's not costing anybody anything, right? Because that block that it was written into was written years ago, and then you can come back and you can You can suddenly get interested in the game again, and oh, look, there's my little token. You can start playing again, and then you can
Right.
say, oh, you know what, I'm going to send my token to somewhere else. And there's no cost for that. Nobody's holding that for you.
Right.
It's just written into the chain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the long term, I mean, big picture here, it's not inconceivable that games could be substantially written to operate on the back end. This is a very big vision, right? Who knows who could do it, but to operate, server side as blockchain games, it's a pretty heady idea, right? But I mean, you could, and people could use their the resources on machine, right, like GPU, to do the necessary work to put it back out in the system and keep it running. It's a little bit reversed from our thinking, right, the old thinking of centralized servers, but I don't see why that couldn't technically work, right?
You could. Yeah, I guess you could use your GPU to be part of a mining pool, maybe to mine new blocks
Yeah.
and get paid for that. But beyond that, the payment for some of these transactions, you get like 1,000 for a penny. So you have a lifetime of transactions for a quarter. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, sure. I mean, the financial side can be extremely advantageous too. So it depends where you get in and how you're using the technology.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that there's a happy place between, rug pull projects, right? Because that's what happens a lot,
Rug pull. That word, rug pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with in games. It's after the fact rug pulling, and if we don't really take into our own hands the finance and distribution side, more so, we may just find a lot more of that. So I think that it makes sense. It makes sense to look at.
Yeah. I believe that, and this is sort of on me to figure out how to make this easier for people to understand. But there's going to be a day when this will all be painfully obvious to everybody, how this new stuff works, and it'll just be taken for granted, and it'll be incorporated into everything from bar games to it's gonna be sort of stupid, right? That's technology. That's kind of technology,
Well, it's too ephemeral and distant until it becomes taken for granted, right? Everybody takes it for granted, like
right,
electricity.
yeah.
So,
yeah. And the things that bring on new technology historically have been, somewhat questionable at times, right? Like,
Sure. Crisis in the market, failure of some large enterprise, logistics, right? You talk about things like natural resources and all that, fruits and vegetables.
Well,
all kinds of
I
things.
was thinking more about like, what pushed video compression, the video formats.
Early streaming. I mean, YouTube really created this outrageous incentive for it.
Right. Even before YouTube, there were other things that happened that pushed the technology, right? And so that's how new technology tends to come about. It's always kind of an outside thing. So.
Right. If it was in the best of circumstances and the market was very nicely sustaining the status quo, then then we wouldn't be we wouldn't be looking at it necessarily. So I absolutely agree. That's the incentives there and the potential is there. When you have a situation like that, it sounds and looks like an opportunity. So. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of blockchain-related technology, and the way it works with Web3 is basically you have the logistic and finance side mesh with your information and interface side online. So some of the stuff they're trying to do, right? We're talking about this, in the future. We're dealing with already in the UK. They're dealing with this, so-called child safety thing. It's really just an online biometric ID for everyone. That's really what it amounts to. And Web3 and crypto it already assumes that you have custody of your wallet, of your finance, and identity is it's tied. It tends to be either tied to that or anonymous. But in any case, it's not. There is accountability, and there's a practicality to it. Which we can't always say is the case with some of the existing distribution systems for games because of the way they've been turned around on us a little bit. So, I do wanna thank everybody for coming. I think Dark has to run in a few minutes here. Do you want to bring up anything or say anything before you're gonna go?
No, just that, as consumers and whatnot, it's gamers, whatever, however you want to put that. It's really just kind of our gig is to hold these companies. If you don't like something these companies are doing, then do what obviously happened with this petition, but the only way that these guys understand is money, and some of these live services want you to constantly just hold the wallet open. Learn to close the damn wallet and tell them no. So instead of spending another $5 on another stupid online skin that you're not going to get or not going to have in 3 years when they decide to shut the game down anyway, just say no. Spend it on other things. I'm not saying go out and touch grass kind of stuff, but I'm like, go spend $5 on that indie debt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to do that too. Sometimes.
Go spend $5 on that indie game that looks like super out of your normal wheelhouse. You might like it. Like what? I've got friends that they hate visual novels, but for some reason, one of the games they got into was AI the Somnium Files, which is visual novel meets detective story. Like, you want to talk about a trip, it's like a pseudo 51 game. You want to talk trip and that kind of game, not their wheelhouse, but they went out and bought it, and now they own all 3 of the games that are in that series just on a whim. So like, be willing to explore and like kind of expand your horizons, and maybe instead of buying, I hate the term AAA slop, but like as often as the games are broken,
yeah,
I would say, maybe your $70, $80, if some publishers have their way, would be better invested in something else.
Yeah. Spread the wealth around, definitely spread the attention to the indies, and maybe donate to preservation. There's some very important societies out there that are working on that.
Yep, there is. Game is one of them, and game is something I wish the industry would support a little more often, as far as like the preservation and stuff that it does. But I think it's like maybe 150 million out of the entire industry goes to actual video game preservation out of the $200 billion industry that it is,
right?
Which is sad and pathetic on so many levels.
Yeah.
That's not even a line note on most of these publishers. Like,
right.
Oh, that's an accounting error.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point earlier, just a parting note, they feel that keeping the publishing of like some of the legacy titles out will prevent new games from selling, and that's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. So yeah, they should do more.
That. They should.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you. I think we're gonna close out here. I think that we had a really good stream, very round number of topics that we discussed. Any Martin? Do you want to say anything before we go ahead? And then I think we're gonna probably wrap, unless yeah, if either when you want to continue on, we could, but I think we're gonna wrap here, right? All right. Have a good night, Dark. John, do you wanna say anything before we wrap up here?
No, just you guys can follow me. I'm on. I think of course, we met on LinkedIn, but I put my just if you can post to my contacts, it's at Wriggler.org is where my link tree is. So.
Yes, yeah, I will make sure to put your the links you recommend here and link tree and all that. No problem with doing that. So yeah, it's a wide-ranging discussion, pretty good. Martin, do you want to do any closing thoughts here?
No, I'm just gonna agree with what was said before. Like, vote with your money.
Mm-hmm.
If you want slop, keep buying slop. If you want good games, buy the good smaller games.
Yeah, yeah, fine point. Absolutely, that's a great place to end it. So I want to thank everyone for participating that was here tonight. I will be putting links and details in the description. And it has been a GBAMS live stream. It's going to be our second one here that we did. And you can check out our website, gbams.org. We have more information there on some of the things going on right now, some details about some of our objectives, and some preserved games and games that are still being serviced after legacy games that have been out there for a while. And we'll have more on preservation and resources, just to get into all the options and all the history and important future involved in preservation and distribution models, even the new distribution models that are coming up, and offer some good glimpses into the past of what worked. So that's all good stuff. Once again, I want to thank everyone for participating and our viewers in the chat. And look forward to seeing you all or bringing some of you back for another roundtable in the future.